Hello everyone, this is Pooka and welcome to another game I played on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. In this game I'm going up against a player named aqua-mom, who appears to be a fella with a mustache. So, interesting avatar. Anyway, I'm going to be using a new deck that I have not really used before in videos, and that is going to be a deck centered around Ninetales. Now, normally when you think of decks these days, you think of big bad EX Pokemon like that Darkrai sitting on the bench, or you use Blastoise to power up your big Keldeo EX or Black Kyurem EX. But this is actually a big change of pace. This is going to focus around nothing but Ninetales. It has the attack Hexed Flame, 20 damage plus 50 more for each special condition the opponent is affected by. So between Hypnotoxic Laser and Muna's Long Distance Hypnosis, you aim to get two special conditions on your opponent's Pokemon. Hopefully Sleep and Poison, as we're going to try to do here. We get the Long Distance Hypnosis, get heads, put that Sableye to sleep. And then Hexed Flame does 120 damage, I believe. And then with Poison damage and Burbank City Gym, it's 30 more. And then with a Silver Bangle, you do 30 more, which adds up to a perfect 180 damage for one energy that can knock out all those big EXs. For example, that Darkrai. I can knock that out in one hit for one energy under the right circumstances. So that's what this deck is built to do. Knock things out in one hit with Hexed Flame, and we'll see how it goes. Now it looks like my opponent's hand is pretty rough at the start here. He gets a Trubbish with a tool. Looks like this is a Darkrai Garbodor deck. So it should be interesting. And we'll see where I take it from here. I do draw Fire Energy, which is nice. I actually opted not to play a supporter on my first turn because I really didn't need much of anything. I could have played a Skyla for Energy Search, but I don't think I really needed to. And now I get to see where I want to go from here. Now, Ninetales does have that ability Bright Look when you evolve into Ninetales. It's basically like a Pokemon catcher. You get to choose a Pokemon on your opponent's bench and bring it in the active spot. Luxray Level X was the first card we saw with this kind of ability. And there we go. There is the Bright Look on the Trubbish. And I figure, you know what? I really need to hit Darkrai in one hit, or knock out Darkrai in one hit. So I'm going to get rid of the thing that's going to prevent me from doing that. And that's going to be this Trubbish. I actually do play my own Garbodor line in this deck. That's actually to stop Virizion EX's Verdant Wind, though. Since it does prevent me from doing any special conditions, I need Garbodor to shut that off. But I'm not going to be using it in this matchup. It's pretty much only for Virizion EX. And in any other matchup, we're just going to be doing shenanigans with Muna and Hypnotoxic Laser, trying to get multiple special conditions. As you saw there, I did pretty much blast that Trubbish straight to the discard pile, where it belongs with the rest of the trash. Now it looks like, well, we'll see what my opponent can do here. But that's a pretty strong start, but it's a pretty standard start for a Ninetales deck. Turn 2, attack with Ninetales. It's pretty simple to do that. You just need a Hypnotoxic Laser. I could have even gone for long distance Hypnosis, but if I got Tails, I would have put myself to sleep, so I didn't want to gamble like that. I just might as well go and take the knockout with the laser. Hypnotoxic Laser is, of course, your most precious resource when using this deck, because without it, your damage is pitiful. You do 20 base damage without any special conditions, so you need these Hypnotoxic Lasers as much as possible. And speaking of that, hey, it looks like my opponent plays them too. But it looks like there's no more Trubbish, and there's probably just going to be a Junk Hunt this turn. And without Garbodor, Mr. Mime sitting on my bench is going to be a very big deal, because it can block the 30 damage to the bench from Darkrai EX's Night Spear. And that's actually huge when you have such low HP Pokemon. Ninetales is a 90 HP Stage 1. Put that in comparison to the 180 HP basic Pokemon that Darkrai EX is, and it almost seems unfair. But, Ninetales is actually pretty powerful. So this turn we'll just go ahead and use Long Distance Hypnosis, and my Ninetales is going to go back to sleep. I also play Musharna. Since I'm already playing Muna, why not? And you can see here, I can use Forewarn to take a look at my top two cards and pick one. and I have a choice between Juniper and N. I decide to go for the N because I don't want to use a Hypnotoxic Laser without taking a knockout. And there's no guarantee I'm going to draw a Float Stone to rush in and retreat with Keldeo EX. I am asleep. If I were awake, I would have taken the Juniper and just, played the Laser, knocked out the Sableye. But I had to play a little bit more conservatively. Draw only 5, but I had to shuffle the Hypnotoxic Laser back, and that was the important part. You need as many of those as possible. You cannot afford to lose any of them. Otherwise, you'll probably end up losing. So here, I just level ball for another Munna, since I did evolve my Musharna my first Munna into Musharna. I'm going to grab a second Munna, try to use long distance hypnosis, maybe keep him asleep. But it looks like my Ninetales is triple asleep, as quadruple asleep apparently, as I flip 4 straight tails, 1 to stay asleep, 2 to put him asleep. Both of those were tails, and then I'm still asleep. So it looks like poor Ninetales has taken a very extended nap here, and hopefully he wakes up next turn, or at the very least I get a Float Stone for my Keldeo EX to rush in and retreat and get rid of the sleep so I can continue to attack. Alright, so from here, my opponent still has to take 6 prizes, and he actually just junk hunts, which is crazy. He did not get much of anything off of that. And now, we'll see what I can do. I'm going to try for long distance hypnosis, but I'm actually trying to figure out, should I try to go after that Darkrai? I'm awake now, so I'll be able to attack no matter what. So should I just kind of bring him out and try to hit a laser and hit that Darkrai before he hits me first? Maybe I can get really lucky and knock it out if I draw. There is an Eviolite on there, which is actually preventing me from knocking that out in one hit. I don't see Eviolite too often anymore, but that does mess with Ninetales quite a bit. But we're going to Ultra Ball for a Ninetales, Bright Look, the Darkrai active, and we'll see what we get. I can Juniper, and I get a Forewarn, so I basically get to look at 9 cards this turn. And those are some good ones to start off with. I get the Laser that I looked for, and the Float Stone, and I'll also get the Forewarn for an extra card. Not going to be too useful, but at least next turn, I'll have more options to look at. Musharna is actually a very underrated card. Most decks don't have the ability to play it, whether they just don't have the bench space, or they just don't want to give up that free prize. But it's a very good ability. If you use it throughout the course of the game, it can net you a lot of cards, which is really important. So I do just Hex Flame here for 100 damage. So that'll put him at 130 after the Poison and Burbank City Gym. 100 plus 30, which means he has 50 HP left. So now all I have to do is put him to sleep with Munna once, and I can Hex Flame for a knockout. Or if I get a Tool Scrapper to get rid of the Eviolite, I can then attach a Silver Bangle and do 50 to knock it out. So there are a lot of options I have to knock out that Darkrai, and it looks like my opponent's just going to continue with Hypnotoxic Laser, realize as well I can't keep that thing active, and another Junk Hunt. So a very uneventful turn for my opponent. I'm going to try to go for long distance hypnosis here, and I get a heads on the Sableye, which is pretty sweet. Now I don't have to waste a laser to knock it out. And then I can rush in with Keldeo. And Forewarn here. Looks like I'm going to get a Skyla. Don't really think I need that for anything right now. So I'm going to play a Shadow Triad to get back a Hypnotoxic Laser. Of course, Shadow Triad allows you to get back any Team Plasma card from your discard pile. It's a very underrated supporter as well. A lot of the time you can't afford to play it because it does take up your supporter for the turn. But when you do get the opportunity to play it, it's pretty darn useful, especially with Hypnotoxic Laser. So I get an extra Hypnotoxic Laser. I basically get 5 to play with now instead of 4. And we take the knockout on that Sableye. 20 plus 50 since Munna put that Sableye to sleep. And now looks like my deck is starting to get in gear. This started off, let's be honest, this is a very fun deck. I do think it is a bit competitive, but the reason I play it is because it's actually a lot of fun to rack up all these special conditions, and then your stage 1 for 1 energy knocks out an EX. That's pretty funny to me. Yeah, it's actually a really cheap deck to make as well. So If you're looking for a deck that doesn't cost very much, would actually be a deck for you. The Ninetales is not very expensive. The Munna and the Musharna are super cheap. The only thing that would maybe cost a little money is Keldeo EX, but that is a tin promo, so that's not even very expensive. So as long as you have staples for a deck, you can build this deck pretty easily. Even Garbodor is pretty cheap. So if you're looking for a budget deck that's still fairly competitive and a lot of fun, this might be the deck for you. Otherwise, Darkrai Garbodor is another good one. Those cards are pretty cheap as well. There are plenty of decks that are actually pretty inexpensive right now. The only expensive card we have really is Tropical Beach, which, well, that's a whole other story. Now, we'll see what happens here. I do have 2 Ninetales out, and Mr. Mime is nice to block some bench damage. I have the Munna to give myself some extra flips. I have a lot of damage on this active Darkrai, and if I can hit Tool Scrapper, Silver Bangle, Laser, and then hit for 180, I can knock out any Darkrai's in one hit. So this actually is seeming like not a bad matchup for Ninetales. I'm actually up 2 prizes on this deck, and it looks like I'm in a good position to go the rest of the way. He's going to play catcher on Mr. Mime, which is kind of annoying. He's going to go after Mr. Mime now, realizing, well, if I let this thing kind of just sit there the whole game, my Night Spears are not very powerful. So I need to deal with that thing right now. Otherwise, it's going to block too much damage, be too effective. And that is just kind of how awesome Mr. Mime is. It's just one spot, and it prevents so much damage from things like Darkrai, from things like Plasma, Kyurem, Genesect EX, Landorus EX. All of these things can be blocked just by one little Mr. Mime. It's pretty cool. But we do see an energy go on the active Darkrai EX, so he'll be able to Night Spear the Mr. Mime. Bench Barrier still goes into effect since it has not been knocked out yet. So I'm going to take a big 0 on my Ninetales. Pretty sweet. And now I have an opportunity here to knock out this Darkrai and go down to 2 prizes. And Ninetales is actually working a lot better than I thought it would, I'll be honest. And that Musharna is a real key. You know, my opponent really can't afford to catch her Musharna and knock it out. If he does, then, I mean, he kind of neglects all of the other threats on my board. But that Musharna is helping me get more and more resources into play. It's pretty cool. I get heads on the long distance hypnosis. That means I am able to knock out this Darkrai with a Hexed Flame. Just for 20 plus 50. I'll do the remaining 50 damage for a knockout. And now I have to decide, do I want to play a supporter here? And I don't really know if I need to play any supporters at this point. I'm just going to Hex Flame for the knockout. I'll keep him in my deck in case my opponent plays an N or something like that to shuffle my hand back in. I don't want a Juniper. I have too many important resources in my hand. So we'll just go ahead and take the knockout. I get Dowsing Machine out of my prizes. So that's another Hypnotoxic Laser potentially. And I gotta say, this deck is actually pretty fun. And Darkrai Garbodor obviously is one of the top archetypes in the format. And we're taking it right to him. It looks like he's been on the back foot the entire game. He's had some slow turns, had to junk hunt more than usual. But overall, we've been keeping up. I mean, even if my opponent had been Night Spearing me back and forth, I think Ninetales can certainly keep up with that. It only costs 1 energy, which is, I mean, you can't get much better than that. So now we do have a laser. Heads. Gonna put Ninetales to sleep here. But I can just rush in and retreat with Keldeo EX and another junk hunt. Wow. That's pretty crazy. So now I'm trying to think, do I have an opportunity to actually win the game here? And I could if I draw the right cards. If I had played Skyla for a Silver Bangle or something the previous turn, I could have gone for a win here. But let's forewarn, if I get a Tool Scrapper or a Bangle, I can go for a win here, but it looks like, nope, that's not going to be the case. Now, I'll probably just Bright Look out Darkrai. I can evolve my other Vulpix into Ninetales. And we'll go ahead and hit it for a bunch of damage. I actually make a big mistake here. I rush in with Keldeo. Before I should have used Long Distance Hypnosis first. And this is where I go, oops. If I get Tails now, I can't retreat. I'll be asleep. So now I just have to kind of roll the dice and, hey, I got heads on Hypnotoxic Laser anyway. Alright, it worked out. So that's pretty lucky, but sometimes that's what this deck is about. If you can flip enough heads, you can do damage and knock out just about everything in the format. The Ninetales is actually very strong. It's just fragile as well. It can dish a lot of damage though, and it's a non-EX. So I don't know. This deck it's kind of growing on me. I'll admit it. I'm gonna attach a second energy to Keldeo EX in case of a Tool Scrapper or something. And that Darkrai is asleep and poisoned. I can go ahead and I'll just might as well Skyla for a Silver Bangle at this point. Looks like I have one prized, but there are 2 in my deck, and there's a Tool Scrapper as well. That Eviolite is actually saving him again. That's very annoying. Don't run into Eviolite too often, but here it is definitely saving him. Doesn't do anything against something like a Black Kyurem EX or a Genesect EX. Both of those can do 200 damage, so Eviolite has kind of fallen out of style, but here, saving him for sure. And, wow, he stays asleep on the laser. So now, if there's no switch, it just passes back and loses. And Ninetales takes a convincing victory over Darkrai Garbodor somehow. We are going to see a Dark Patch here. So maybe we'll see a switch. If that's the case, well then, you can survive another turn or so. But I do play Tool Scrapper, and I can just Skylar for Tool Scrapper maybe. And then Rush in, Retreat. Did Catcher the Musharna active. And I can Dowsing Machine for a Catcher and just do the final 20 damage to Darkrai with the Silver Bangled Ninetales. So it looks like at this point it's almost wrapped up. Here is the Juniper. Silver Mirror goes on to his Garbodor. And a second energy, and okay, he loses to poison damage. Alright. So, there's another deck to keep in mind. Ninetales, Musharna, and Garbodor. A crazy concoction, but maybe just crazy enough to work. Who knows? Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have some more for you soon. I am Pooka from the Top Cut, and I'll see you guys next time.